We are recording with the one and only Dr. Roger Hodkinson on Wednesday, June 5th, 2024 at 10:21 a.m. Eastern Time. In the description, as well as in the pinned comment of this video, there is a link to a Rumble video that you were on. Please go give it a thumbs up and drop an awesome comment. Go say, like, you know, Dr. Hodkinson is Superman and Batman, and he's, I don't know. He also sang for Def Leppard, and he's 6'8" and a male model. And on top of that, he's also a doctor, which are all true. A lot of people don't know that about you. They're all true. Dr. Hodkinson, how you doing, man?
Well, with that introduction, I feel a lot better. Uh, it's it'll help me get to my 80th birthday in 2 weeks,
Oh, what day's your birthday? I'll make a note of it. What day's your birthday?
June 27th.
June 27th. I'm putting it in my calendar, and I'll harass you on your birthday. Birthday. Um, but yeah. So concerning, I guess, I don't know, the madness still going on, and for future listeners, it is June 5th, 2024. Dr. Fauci is, or was, in a hearing or a testimony, and seemed to admit that he made up just about everything that we were told was unassailable and airtight. Um, is this what? Where do we go from here? What do we do from here? I think one of my favorite episode titles ever is with you, and it's just literally called "Bomb Countries That Do Gain of Function Research." So I know what your views are, but where do we go from this?
Well, two issues I think should be pursued simultaneously. Um, we need vengeance in the courts for the scale of murder that's taken place. That needs to be unremitting. The perpetrators of this catastrophic event in human history have to be brought to task publicly in the hope that this will never be repeated. The scale of death is off the scales. We're talking in the US about 1 million deaths from the various interventions. We're talking globally about 20 million deaths. This is unprecedented. This is murder. And so that's the first point. We need prosecutions, we need jail time. And we've talked about the relative roles of Fauci and Birx later on. The second thing is, of course, I hate whiners. There needs to be solutions.
Hmm.
And solutions can only be found at the end of the day politically. And clearly, the current administration in the States is not going to change the direction that things are going, which is over a cliff. Um, I'm hoping that when Trump gets reelected, that there will be institutional change that leads the world in terms of how to run medicine. Because of course the CDC, all the alphabet agencies, which I could list, all the alphabet agencies have been shown to be not just corrupt but profoundly corrupt, totally unreliable, and they need to be brought to heel. Only then, I think, can we look forward to a future that's less dystopian. It goes, of course, beyond the United States. Canada is an absolute basket case, much worse than you're experiencing. And internationally, of course, the WEF and the WHO, they also need total reorganization. Um, Hopefully, Trump will withdraw from the WHO and the and not have anything to do with the WEF. So yeah, I mean that's a double track. Vengeance, very appropriate, naked, rabid, and simultaneously with institutional reform.
It's kind of a there's like one of my favorite memes is always like it's showing what the Democrats are doing, and then there's a conservative going, imagine if the roles were swapped. But that's all they do. And to the point where it's like you're in a gulag with an AK to the back of your head. You're like, can you imagine the outrage if Trump was doing this right before they blow your brains out? And legally, I have to say I can't call for violence, and I'm legitimately not. I legitimately don't think that violence is the answer. Not because I'm a hippie. Rationally, I don't think it is, because then you give the powers that be a just cause to crack down. That's all throughout human history. So that's not really an opinion. That just seems to be a predictable truth. But it's if they start going after them, and I think they should, because you can't be isolated and then Germany invades Poland and Japan bombs Pearl Harbor. At a certain point, it's like it will come to our shores. Whether we want, we can do lend lease with Britain, give them a bunch of ships, but it comes to our shores eventually.
Right.
And as we're seeing with Trump getting 34 felonies, and well, Fauci still walks free. You do have to have a certain point of sobriety where you have a certain point of sobriety where you have to look at it and go, you have to prosecute back. But then you also have to really kind of remove your emotion from it and look at it and go, you prosecute them back, that's going to galvanize their base, and then they're going to prosecute back. And then we're going to have to keep escalating, co-escalating. Once you fire a return nuke, you're pretty much at mutual assured destruction.
But Tommy, I'm
So
not talking about
no, no, I
the,
know that. I'm more thinking out loud of like,
yeah.
it seems to
I'm
be an
not talking about
unavoidable tit for tat. And
no,
what is the end state of that?
no. I'm not talking about political tit for tat. I'm talking about incarcerating criminals.
So am I, but it's inherently and inseparably political.
No, no.
You don't think so? All right.
The people that have been running the show medically, um, Fauci and Birx, mainly Birx, of course, um, and all the other people that were running the show, CDC, FDA, they need to be prosecuted from the strictly medical decisions that were made, the public health decisions that were made. I'm taking politics right out of it. I'm not in favor of a tit for tat political campaign. That's a race to the bottom.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's
I,
yeah, that's what I was trying to say in so many more words. It's race to the bottom.
yeah, yeah. No, and to a large extent, Tommy, to paint an even bigger picture, um, COVID and wokeism, in my opinion, and Ukraine are mere distractions from the much bigger picture
Mm-hmm.
going on geopolitically, which is, of course, if I could phrase, intone it correctly, China. It, it's
China.
all it's all about China. We are crucifying ourselves on the altar of climate change, making ourselves progressively weaker and weaker and weaker, racking up incredible debt. Right now, the debt on the US national interest exceeds what you're spending on the entire military.
Mm-hmm.
1.5 billion versus a trillion, one
Trillion.
versus 1 trillion. So China's loving it. They're building coal-fired plants faster than you can spit. They're getting stronger, and sooner or later, those curves cross, and it will make wokeism and COVID look like a ridiculous footnote in history. We've got to keep our eye on the ball. And the general operating principle for people to remember is very simple. It's called ABC, anywhere but China. You don't feed your enemy. You put a siege around the castle and you starve them to death.
Yeah. So then let's step back and kind of look at that. Right? It's the comedian Tim Dillon had a great point. He was like in 2008 when the American financial bailouts, the TARP bailouts happened. It was like what 700 or 800. I think the first bill was 1 trillion and it didn't pass, and then the next one was 700 billion. And people are saying this changes the scope of the federal government. I mean, this is such a large amount of money. It's such a heavy hand involved. Meanwhile, like 2 or 3 trillion went missing in the late 90s from the Pentagon, and like another 5 trillion went missing over the next decade. And it never gets brought up, never gets touched. Occasionally you have some congressman yelling about it, but it's almost 10 times the size of the TARP bailouts, and it doesn't get touched. And Tim goes, you can tell by default that that is the
Sure.
nucleus of control on this planet. It's no surprise, military industrial intelligence complex. I don't think we're in any way, shape, or form trying to avoid war with China. I think that there are smarter men than you and I. Maybe not you, because again, you're Dr. Hodkinson. Smarter men than I who watch this, or not watch this, are watching the world, and they're going, we wait until China gets bigger, until the curves cross, or we're watching the up and coming star and we need to break their legs first, right? It's Thucydides' trap. I don't think so. The distractions, they are just that. They're distractions. I don't even necessarily think they're China's distractions. I think they're our distractions to gear up
Mm-hmm.
for a full
Mm-hmm.
exchange with
Sure.
China. Yeah.
Sure. We're bringing it on ourselves.
Yeah.
Look, there's a famous law out there, Stein's law. If something if something can't go on forever, it will stop. It will stop, otherwise known as hitting a wall with the national debt. That's accelerating and it will hit us. It's a matter of just when and how.
Oof.
That's a catastrophic end to democracy as we know it, because there will be civil strife.
So, are we looking at this with a mathematical certainty? It's kind of like orbital mechanics. It's like, yeah, other than, getting hit by an asteroid, there is something beautifully almost Swiss watch esque about orbital bodies. You can predict, just like you can predict when the next lunar eclipse will be down to the second. There's something beautiful about just like that asteroid's going to hit southern Brazil in 914,000 years, 2 minutes and 3 seconds. There's something beautiful about that. Are we looking at the sort of orbital mechanics of our own debt and being like, it's going to cross paths on this day, and on this day, the US dollar will be nothing? Maybe that day is 2028. China needs to be, we need to be in a full scale escalation war with China by that date. And unlike orbital mechanics, we could speed it up actually. We could devalue our dollar further to warm the average American up. I mean, right? 5 years ago, you bring this up, people will be like, "You're insane." You bring it up now, and it's $100 to go get a couple items in your grocery cart. You might have a lot of people being like, it's us or them. I think you're gonna start seeing people be. I think you're gonna see the moral flexibility on full display, and I don't think I'm immune to it. It doesn't make it right. It just seems to be what it is. I think that's. I think we want this. I legitimately do. I think you're going to see the Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, China, Taiwan fronts all merge into, spoiler alert, a big semicircle around Russia and China. Hopefully, we get India and Australia on our side. And I don't think they want full scale nuclear war. I think they want another Cold War. I think they want a big bad
Sure,
boogeyman for 40 or
sure.
50 years. I think that would
Yeah,
probably you'd have, if it goes according to plan, you'd have that kind of post 9/11 nationalism. You'd probably have a lot less division between crazy people with neon orange hair who mutilate their genitals and then God-fearing Republicans from Montana. You'd probably have a little more like, let's put our differences aside and kill China. Doesn't make it right. It doesn't. I'm not arguing for the ethical, validity of this. It just seems to be it seems like the orbital mechanics of like, yeah, that asteroid's going to hit right there, and there's not a whole lot we can do. And it's what is there to do about it? Not that you have the answer, but what is there to do about it? I know we're not touching on COVID or medicine at all, but whatever.
well, it's important for people not to replace one fear with another. Um, I would encourage everyone listening to your podcast, Tommy, to get involved. The solutions are not just top down with Trump, but also bottom up. We must recognize that part of the problem is the dystopian environment that's largely created by the intellectual elite, largely in universities. And to counter that and the infiltration of Soros and co, to counter that, individuals have got to start getting involved in society and leaving their narcissistic tendencies at the door, the Netflix, the selfies, the joint when you get home, etc., etc. For most people, I've been in this freedom movement now for 4 years, and I can tell you my gut sense is that most people really don't give a damn about freedom. They will
Yeah.
trade it off for they will trade it off for a trinket, otherwise known as convenience. Tap and go at McDonald's, electronic digital currency, etc. Most people are not motivated to get involved because they're hedonistic in a swirl down the drain. When things get bad enough, hopefully they'll realize that there's a need to get involved. And by that, I mean practical things like getting on the school board, involved in a political party, activism that will, when it reaches a certain mass, can exercise significant change. That's terribly important that people don't leave the heavy lifting to a handful of others and reap the benefits. No, they've got to get involved themselves. That's going to be hard, painful, time consuming. It means you can't watch Netflix. Oh, poor you. That's got to happen. It can't just be top down.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one of I think the second episode I did with Dr. Matthias Desmet. He talked about, and I talked about the same thing. It's the first time I had him on was January 2022. I think I had him on like a year later or something. And we talked about how much like my views had changed. Where I was like, for a long time, I thought people just didn't have access to the information, and that's why I would, I think you were like one of my first strikes ever on YouTube, and I was like, it's the right thing to do. I feel morally sound on this. People need to have access to the information. If you want to go get the vax, if you want to go do heroin, whatever, that's your choice. But I was like, I feel like people need to have the access to the information.
But they
You,
but they don't have access to information, Tommy. That's the problem. That's one of the problems. The mainstream media is bought and paid for by big pharma.
yeah, I'm talking about why I did what I did. Like why I did these episodes. I was like, people
Okay,
need access to this. What my
absolutely.
views then started to change were like, I'm helping people get it. I'm Dr. Malone, Dr. McCullough, you, Dr. Alexander, Dr. Everyone under the sun, every doctor under the sun. And some people were very, very grateful for it. A lot of people did nothing differently. And that's when I started to realize, oh, they don't want to be. There are a lot of people that are like, yeah, I know it's bad for me. I like having a daddy figure. And that was a very big change for me of like, oh, people don't want to be free. They really don't. They like, so the only, I guess, silver lining would be is if things get so bad that getting involved no longer requires courage, but it's actually the lazy trinket. People are like, I don't want to go to war. I just want the US dollar to buy more stuff again. That might be, politics makes strange bedfellows. You might have a lot of people going like, yeah, I don't even care about Trump. I just like don't want to go get involved in anything. And if Trump gets in charge or whatever, the less involvement, the better. So there might be people that are doing it because it is the lazy move, which isn't a bad thing. But I don't know if
The
you
the
can
pri-
fix that though. People that don't want freedoms, I don't. You can lead them. You can
the,
lead the horse to water, but it's like
the primary motivator is not the loss of freedom. The primary motivator for the vast majority of people is very simply
lo-
defined.
the loss of
It's how much
convenience.
money is in your wallet.
Yeah, same thing.
Period. That's it. Now, when the wallet starts getting thinner and thinner and thinner, when you start getting breadlines, soup kitchens, mortgage defaults en masse, we might start getting people's attention.
Hmm.
I hope it doesn't come to that.
I I don't know where it goes because no time in history has tyranny ever led. You know, the beauty of the American system was the peaceful transfer of power. I guess part of me, the pessimistic side of me, which I try not to nourish, it's like the 2020 election was clearly stolen. The 2022 midterms, you know, like the voting machines in conservative districts all stopped working. Part of me feels like Charlie Brown going to kick the football. I'm like, they're not gonna. If they removed a president, if they removed a president while not in charge, what in God's name makes you think they're gonna? They've got to the throne. What makes you think they're gonna get up off the throne now? And I
Well,
don't like
Tommy,
it. Where does it go other than all out kinetic war, which will kill me because I have no skills in that. I do a podcast.
empires come and go.
Mm-hmm.
Look at history.
Yeah.
There's nothing immutable about democracy. The,
What can't
the,
go
the,
on will
pro-
stop.
the problem with democracy is the exercise of freedom without responsibility. That's its Achilles heel.
Mm.
Everyone loves freedom, but you have to marry it with responsibility. You don't let your dog run free. You don't run parties at 2 o'clock in the morning and annoy your neighbors. You know, there has to be personal responsibility. And that means if you want to be part of society, you've got to get involved. Otherwise, suffer the consequences of a dystopian authoritarian future. We should not get so intoxicated with the beauty of the American ideal. It's temporary in the grand
Mm-hmm.
scheme of things. It needs to be defended. Otherwise, it too will go in the garbage can of history as a great experiment that failed.
Hold on, this fan's. So one thing I try to look at then is like there's something cold but something beautiful about just the objectivity of evolution. Like it doesn't matter what your opinion is. Like the bigger dinosaur just kills more and has more offspring. It's just I don't like the T Rex. Doesn't matter. It does not matter. It's eating everyone and laying eggs or whatever T Rexes do.
Well,
So
evolution may be underway as we speak, which is a good way to get into some of the new developments in COVID. Tommy, if I may.
yeah, sure, yeah. So yeah, I'll make it one sentence. I mean, China might just be the next evolution. It might be unethical and immoral, but evolution doesn't care. Evolution might have said freedom worked really well from like horses and carriages up to the radio, but not past that. You know, a theocratic monarchy worked really well in the Bronze Age with ships and sails. It might just be, you know, and then the age of cyber and biowarfare, it's like communism's the best one. And then after that, spacefaring species, it might be like democracy's good again. It might be just the ebb and flow of meta scales far beyond our lives. But yeah, sorry, going to evolution and COVID.
I want to talk about something technical in lay language that's the most important thing going on right now in the COVID world. It's called reverse transcription, which is a technical term for incorporating foreign DNA and RNA into our own genome. The dogma used to be a one-way track from DNA in the nucleus to RNA in the cytoplasm to make proteins that make everything work. That was the dogma, a one-way track. It was not supposed to go the other direction. Well, we do know from study of the human genome that 8% of the human genome is viral in origin. Eons ago, viruses found a way of going up the chain from their RNA and DNA to incorporate into our DNA. It has happened many, many times. So what's really scary about recent events is the distinct possibility that the genetic information in this gene therapy, which is the best description for it, if it gets incorporated into spermatozoa, it becomes a transgenerational change in humanity with totally unpredictable consequences. Because it, as likely as not, it's random, the frequency of it is erratic, and we just don't know what the consequences would be. That study is currently underway. It's being led by a Canadian molecular biologist, virologist, Dr. David Spiker, and Kevin McKernan and others. If that is shown to be present, it is a Nobel-worthy discovery of gigantic significance. They're currently waiting for ethics approval in order to get that study underway. It is of gigantic importance.
To question real quick. So we know that reverse transcription happens, and eons ago. What is it that they're doing now that's showing that that would be Nobel Prize worthy? I'm confused.
Well, because if the RNA from this gene therapy is reverse transcribed into human DNA, it is a permanent installation.
Mm-hmm.
And what its consequences are, we haven't a clue. What we do know is that in a petri dish with malignant cells, you like to study this in a situation where cells are rapidly dividing. Rapidly dividing cells are more, it's much easier to insert viral genetic information into the DNA of the nucleus. We do know, there's been proven, MIT did the study. We do know that reverse transcription into malignant human cells in a petri dish, we do know that that happens. Conceptually, there's no difference between that and rapidly dividing cells in the testes.
So then,
so it's a very serious, very serious concern.
No, it's you're manipulating the blueprint. It's the problem with evolution and mutations are the same thing. It's like if you're making a copy of a paper, then the paper gets a pen mark on it, and all subsequent copies have the pen mark. You can never undo it. You can only ever add more. And sometimes they're beneficial. Would you say that this is then, I don't know if this is speculation, would it then be hypothesized that this was intentional?
I don't believe that any of this stuff was intentional. I distance myself from any conspiracy theory that doesn't have a forensic trail, which is currently lacking.
Yeah.
I mean, just going back 4 years, I'm sure this was an accidental release that played into the need for the DoD to immediately operationalize the dual function research idea. Was we're going to play around with viruses to make them more infectious and lethal so that we can study them better to potentially prevent consequences and treat it, etc., etc. That's the ludicrous idea about gain of function. But it was a dual function research program operated by the DoD for years. And the other side of the dual function was the ability to create on in volume as rapidly as possible a vaccine to counter that potential, and by extension, if biowarfare ever happened, using the same rationale. So when the escape happened, it created pandemonium in the DoD and Fauci and Birx. Basically, holy shit, it's escaped. We've got to accelerate the vaccine program to justify the dual function research program that's been going on for years.
Yeah,
That in my opinion, that's what happened. You would expect them to have DoD. You would expect them to have a program on the shelf ready to go if China or North Korea did let loose a bioterrorism weapon.
sure. And
But it
that's
got out of control. It got totally out of control. Birx, of course, was the person really orchestrating the whole thing. Fauci was just a stooge, just a front end stooge. Remember, Birx was a 28-year Army veteran, a colonel, before she started getting into the bureaucracy. She managed the whole thing from start to finish. It was a military operation in terms of the research. It was a military operation in terms of the distribution of the vaccine. And it was a military operation in terms of proving that this fortunate opportunity to test drive how we react, that was military. Everything was military.
as a side note, that's probably not a bad guardrail in terms of. I always use the analogy of like when you're going down the conspiracy rabbit hole. Make sure that you're lowering yourself in slowly. Make sure that you're not going head first. Very quickly, you can go from oh, COVID was a scam to JFK was an alien. And it's like
Sure.
you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful.
No,
And so
there's a million reasons why it wasn't intentional. First off, it didn't kill enough people. There was no
yeah,
excess mortality in the first year before all the mandates kicked in.
hmm,
It wasn't lethal. First off, secondly, to have such a coordinated response internationally would require you'd expect a whistleblower by now,
hmm.
someone that couldn't live with themselves. That's not happened either. So there's a huge variety of reasons why this was not an intentional release.
And it's also just it's like you have to pick one. It's either the powers that be are omnipotent, all knowing, all seeing, and all intellectualized, or they're incompetent idiots. You got to
Yeah,
pick one, and it's like
I mean,
did they fumble the ball and just botch this whole thing, or was it planned out? And I tend to be with you as much as I. My gut instinct is to say they're demons from hell, and to say it was intentional. You're right. I mean, you do have to have forensic receipts. You can't just go out on a limb and say
if
this.
it had been intentional, there wouldn't have been an immediate early morning massive email exchange, um, contemplating how to react to the discovery that the leak had happened. If it had been intentional, there would have been no panic at 3 o'clock in the morning. No, not at all. No, there was panic because holy shit, the gig's up. This stuff's escaped. We've got to operate warp speed. Don, we can do it in 6 months. Fauci knew that the delivery vehicle had been well researched for 10 years and failed. It was a failed attempt to treat brain cancer with lipid nanoparticles. He knew that. He knew that all you had to do was package these lipid nanoparticles, well developed technology, with the RNA of the COVID virus, with some modifications that we all know about. But that didn't take long. Uh, no, it was a warp speed panic reaction to having been caught with their pants down.
Hmm. To pull back then, so the reverse transcription I definitely understand the importance of it. It's flowing backwards. It's it's like sewage valves. That it's like a one way pushing. You don't want it to be pushing back out the toilet. It's very important that it doesn't. If this happened on such a large scale, that is evolutionarily unique, right? Normally, when this stuff happens, it's when it's single cellular organisms. It's like 1 in a trillion raised to the trillionth power. Mitochondria got swallowed up by a early eukaryote or something, and then it spreads over generations. This is unique in that was it was done, whether not intentionally, regardless. It did happen with a finger on the scale, and not everyone got it. I mean, worst case scenario, this would almost be like a speciation event.
Well, when there's only one saving grace to reverse transcription and transgenerational change. There's only one saving grace, and it's this: whenever you monkey around with the human DNA or DNA of any organism, you create a less viable product. So let's assume for a minute that reverse transcription is shown to have happened in spermatozoa. The likelihood is that that would result in fewer spermatozoa, less functional spermatozoa, less able to fertilize an ovum, and if fertilization did take place, create what we call a blighted ovum, an ovum which won't survive and develop. Now, that saving grace, of course, has a sting in the tail. It's called depopulation. If if fertility drops dramatically, then of course, although there would be no transgenerational change because the product is non-viable. So that is certainly a serious risk of monkeying around with the DNA of spermatozoa.
That's a good point. Yeah, the forest fire is burning itself out before it can spread. It doesn't matter if
Yep.
there's trans. Oh, this skips every 3 generations. It doesn't matter. You don't fertilize a zygote.
And if I could inject a somewhat
Yeah.
humorous comment at this point, the unvaccinated will inherit the world.
I mean, not to pat myself on the back, but I will. I'll be a I'll be a post-vaccination warlord. I'll be
So
the new Genghis Khan. In 5,000
in
years, they'll say, "Did you know 0.8 of all children are descendants of Tommy?"
no, you could be a very attractive person for a dating agency, Tommy.
Unvaxxed. That seems to be more likely then, right? Not a speciation event, but rather,
Well, there are dating agencies now, of course, that are
oh yeah, oh yeah. That's
commercializing
not a joke. Yeah, no, they
that
are.
very issue. Yeah.
Absolutely are. Yeah, no, that's the fallback plan. If the podcast doesn't work, I will be a universal sperm donor. But but like, yeah, so this wouldn't be a speciation event. It would rather be a bottleneck event, right? Like there's some volcano like 70,000 years ago that said reduced the population from
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
million humans down to like 10,000, and then we're
Right.
all descendants of them. So we lost a lot of, and that happens throughout
Yeah.
history. There's bottleneck after
But
bottleneck after bottleneck.
look at the fallout from that. We're in a rabbit hole now. But if that actually happens, it's not just the loss of fertility. That's merely one consequence. We're looking at all the other delayed events that we're predicting from the gene therapy. And I'd
What do
like
you
to
mean?
talk about that too, Tommy.
What do you mean? What I mean,
And
like
we're
secondary
talking
and
about
tertiary events, like countries, or
no,
biological, or
no
strictly biological.
medical events. I'm
Gotcha.
talking about the delayed onset of heart failure and dementia. Let me explain. We do know that one of the awful common pathways for producing disease following the gene therapy is the tendency of small blood vessels, capillaries, to clot. Now, when a capillary gets blocked, it doesn't deliver oxygen and glucose to the cells it would normally keep alive. Those cells will die. Now, in the brain and the heart, the cells do not regenerate. We're born with all the ones we're going to get. If the attack is sufficiently random and low grade, you won't notice a damn thing. You'll feel perfectly well. But you will have lost the reserve of those organs that we rely upon when you get to my age. The translation of that is we could see an epidemic of premature heart failure and dementia in people who've had multiple shots.
Mm. It's the biological equivalent of declassifying documents 50 years after, Gulf of Tonkin, or
Yeah,
real involvement with Vietnam. By then, it's like they're all dead. Yeah,
the
I mean,
perpetrators, when that happens, the perpetrators will be dead and buried themselves.
yeah, no. So that actually that kind of the glove fits, right? It's like, yeah, that is how you would. I think I said that. I probably said that early on with you. I was like, how would you avoid mass uprisings of people if everyone started dropping dead? You'd make the effects kick in 50 years.
Well, the healthcare system in every Western country is already stretched thin,
Mm-hmm.
underfunded, undermanned. Um, I'm sorry, rinse my mouth out. Underpeopled.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
uh,
bigot.
so
You.
so there's going to be enormous additional strain put on a system that's already decomposing. That's quite scary. Compounded by the, as I said previously, the interest on the national debt, which is basically a Ponzi scheme, having to borrow money to pay the interest on the money you've already borrowed. When that hits a wall, there'll be even less money for healthcare and education. So you'll have a double attack. You'll have reduced resources and massively increased demand.
Historically, if you're poor and you have no education and no skills, you join the military for 3 square meals a day and a bed. They might be trying to make the military look like the most attractive option that would fit in with war, a war that would also help hopefully eliminate China, or you go, they're now an adversary, therefore we don't recognize their holding of debt. It seems like it's all, and whether or not it's planned, who knows? It might just be an emergent phenomena. I don't think we're getting out of this decade without going to war with China, and God willing, it's Cold War. But I legitimately don't think that there's any, whether or not it's guys in a smoky room in the Pentagon, or if it's just a clashing of like meta systems. I don't think we're getting out of this without. I mean, look how much has changed in 5 years. Just relative peace to, yeah, we're kind of in like a full proxy war. All of NATO is arming Ukraine to fight back against Russia, Israel, and Gaza. We're sending aircraft carriers there, and we're currently, sending missiles to Taiwan. Like, what does another 5 years bring? How much does the Overton window shift that? What was impossible 5 years ago is happening now. So what is impossible now? A war with China. Give it 5 years. I don't. It all seems to be funneling to that one outcome. And again,
At,
it might just be. It seems so complex. I don't even know if it is planned. It just seems, yeah, less money, more debt. No health care. Join the army. You get a gun. You get a cot. You get clothes. You get food.
you'll also get an injection.
Well, yeah, that too. So what do I do? You're turning 80. I'm turning 34. What do I do?
You
How do?
carry on with your podcast, Tommy.
All
You
right.
try to spread the word.
All right.
You and all the other independent podcasters are going to be our salvation, spreading real information to people that have been denied it for 4 years and even longer, of course. I mean, the the corruption within the media and politics is not a new phenomenon. It's been going on forever. I'd like to point out one thing that most people don't realize when they watch television in the States, Tommy. When you I listen to Fox a lot. It says a lot about me, doesn't it? Uh, when you listen to any U.S. television station, the
Pharmaceuticals.
advertisements are heavily there's a lot of pharmaceutical products advertised. Now, when you listen to those adverts, there's a long list of complications that are described,
Mm-hmm.
which mean nothing to most people, but they're obligated to do it by US regulation. Now, you'd like to think that Big Pharma would be upset about having to waste all that money because it's the doctor's job to tell you all that. No, absolutely not. Just the opposite. Because of Big Pharma being the principal advertisers with big media has become dependent upon their advertising. In other words, they direct editorial content. That's why you're not getting any information on COVID, because the media doesn't want to bite the hand that feeds it.
Of course. It's the same. Yeah, I mean, same reason you have them all in lockstep whenever we're going to war. It's you know, that's like it's the height of naivety to assume that's not bought and paid for. Um, Intentional or not, you could say that. So let's say this is a bottleneck event. Let's say it's turning people infertile. If it's a bottleneck event, and I have to be careful about how to say this because I don't want to sound like a total, egotistical idiot. It would, the people that didn't take, and I got a lot of people. I know a lot of people that took it, and they're like, I know it's bad, and I know it could kill me, but I've got 3 kids, and I'm like, I do get that,
Yeah,
and I honestly I do respect it. I'm like, that's you're putting your
sure,
life on the line of like, hey, I'm the father, I'm the breadwinner. I can, if I die,
sure.
they'll get health insurance. That's respectable. So I don't mean to like throw them down, but you would intentionally or not, you would be doing a form of eugenics and natural selection for independent thinking,
Hmm.
whether you wanted to or not. You would just do that because you can't say it's a wealth thing because we shipped them all over the world.
Well, even before um, COVID and the consequences of the gene therapy, there have been some recent studies showing that the replacement rate for humanity is
Mm-hmm.
dropping below
Below
replacement
the
rate.
1.2 or
And
whatever it's
even
supposed to
even
be,
if you include the
or 2.1.
size of families in Africa and the Middle East, even if you include that, we are actually at peak population now. It's not going to keep on growing exponentially. It's actually in the decline. And that could well accelerate with the infertility introduced by injecting most of the world's population with something that can attack the testes.
Full conspiracy, and as somebody that loves conspiracies, I'm pretty sure I made this one up because I haven't read it anywhere else, and I'm proud of it. Why would you want to cool the world then for independent thinkers? Well, if we're on
Well,
like if we're on the precipice of space exploration, where you have colonies that even the speed of light takes time to reach, wouldn't you want people that were capable of taking an unknown landscape and not knowing what was true and using their gut instead of groupthink? I mean, purely from like a psychopathic Machiavellian standpoint, isn't that what you would do?
Well, the escape theory, yeah, certainly that
No, no,
could
no,
be.
not escape. If we're spreading out to the stars, like even when you're controlling a rover on Mars, it still takes like 8 minutes for the light signal to get there. What if you go out to stars? What if you're 4 and 5 light years away? You can't have a bunch of idiots that go next. Now what, sir? And then we wait 5 years for the message to get to Earth, and then 5 years for it to come back, and they go take that mountain. This isn't a real time battle. You're gonna want people that are like, all right, what do we need to do? How do we need to set this up? I'm not saying it's
It,
good, but man, it seems like that's something you'd want to do if you wanted to seed the galaxy. You'd want a bunch of people that don't need central command.
isn't it interesting um, how our intellect, so-called, has created so much sophistication with artificial intelligence, with genetic therapies of
Mm.
various kinds. We've done all that without knowing a damn thing about what's going on in here. We don't know how we think. We don't know what consciousness is. It's a huge frontier. But what I can say is this, that very fortunate chance mutation that allowed us to talk once eons ago, deep in darkest Africa. Once that intelligence started being a positive impact on our evolution, we've now become too smart for our own good.
Mm.
Our intelligence is going to be our demise because just because we can do something, such as AI, with the devastation of small business, for example, and the national economy, just because we can do something doesn't mean, or gene therapy, doesn't mean to say we should be allowed to do it because it's the exact opposite for a desirable evolutionary trend. We're so infatuated with ourselves. It's really scary, doing all this fancy stuff without having a friggin' clue about what the consequences will be.
If organic life is what, like 2 billion years old, 3 billion years old, you might argue though that this has been selected for that more cautious modes of thinking die out, and we are the impulsive gamblers. We're like, yeah, put it all in red, whatever. And it sometimes it works out, and sometimes it's like you create, I don't know, heavier than air flight or the iPhone. Sometimes you get nuclear war, but it seems like this is the one that's kind of selected. Do you want the guy with even like the parable in the Bible, right? It's like I gave you a piece of silver. What did you do with it? I buried it. You gave the other guy a piece of silver. What did he do with it? I turned it into two pieces. What'd you do? What did the last guy do? I took the piece and turned it into 10 pieces. All right, first two guys give it to those that have, all will be given, and to those that have less, like
Mm.
all shall be taken. It might be like, yeah, the species that's like, yeah, I wonder if we can get in a pressurized tube and fly across the ocean. Like a cautious hominid doesn't do that. Crazy people do it. They're like, yeah, we could probably put 500 people in a tube and just launch it across. What is it fueled by? Stuff that if a spark hits it would blow up. Yeah, do it. We do it. I live like a mile from an airport all day, every day. The impossible is happening, right? I mean, why is
No,
the internet created? It was to interact between nuclear bunkers in the event of a thermonuclear holocaust, right? It's none of this is
I'm not,
cautious.
I'm not anti-progress.
No, 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 I know you're
Look,
not.
look at the incredible advances that technology has resulted in, lifting so many people from poverty internationally. I mean, the advantages of technology are gigantic. What is needed is to have effective control over technologies that can have a very negative consequence. And that could only happen by international convention.
Mm.
I'm talking here about gain of function research, which is an
Yeah.
existential threat
Yeah.
to humanity. The only upside to gain of function research is that it's incredibly difficult to make a virus very lethal and very transmissible simultaneously. That is very difficult to achieve. That's the only saving grace to gain of function.
Yeah. More and more, I think I'm starting to think that all this is just a chaotic dance on the head of a pin. Um, but Dr. Hodkinson, I have Dr. Thorpe coming on here in 10 minutes, so I gotta get ready for that. I apologize to end it rather abruptly. But guys, please go in the description. Please go find that link and go watch the video and go give it a thumbs up. Dr. Hodkinson, final thoughts, final anything we didn't get out?
Get informed, get involved, take your vitamin D every day, and remember A, B, C. Anywhere
Anywhere but
but China.
China. I'll take it. Dr. Hodkinson, you're the man. I love talking to you. Thank you for time out of your day, sir. Thank you for coming on here. And I look forward to the next one, man.
My pleasure. Thank you,
Thank
Tommy.
you. Yes, sir. Guys, thank you so much for watching.
Recording
God bless
stopped.
everybody. Much love. Peace.